say it? Jason Bukala?
I don't know. Bukala? Bukala.
Sammy.
I think if you hit the TV.
Bukala? Here we go. Toronto Maple Leafs carrying a 3-game winning streak. Does that mean no one's going to be watching or listening anymore? Come on, we only get like 2,000 people watching on YouTube when all hell is breaking loose in Leafland.
We had 20,000 people watch the show where things were going poorly.
Well, that's not the case. Philly,
Yep.
Boston, Carolina, and tonight, the Vegas Golden Knights bring in an 11-2 record. Not bad, JB.
Ooh, yeah, no, they are on fuego. This is good. This type of thing the Leafs need to be motivated, apparently.
Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Derek Brandeo, Jen Rolnick, Sammy McKee, and Frank the Tank right back at it for the next 2 hours. We get to tee up how the Leafs would look and feel tonight. Despite the great weekend, we're still seeing some lines being juggled.
Mm-hmm.
And we see Matthews and Marner back together again to start this game.
As is in their contract.
So I guess I don't have to ask you if you're surprised.
No, not surprised. It does feel like the coach has seen enough of their special relationship that he knows that they'll be able to work through it.
And it feels so good.
And they'll find it. So I'm not surprised there. I am surprised that Bunting didn't get to go play with like Tavares and Nylander and go help them win pucks or something like that, but instead is with the line that, as I joked about, they scored and he was like, ugh, I get Engvall and Yarncroc now. Great. And sure enough.
Okay, for the record, it's Kerfoot, Matthews, and Marner tonight. Robertson, Tavares, Nylander. The third line would be Bunting, Engvall, and Yarncroc, followed up by Aston Reese, Kempf, and the hottest man in hockey, Mulligan.
If Denny Mulligan. He's the best, man. Coach called him the best player on the ice, didn't he?
Yeah, multiple times.
Yeah.
Sammy, we're playing an 11-2 big boy team in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
You okay with the lineup?
Yeah, I'm okay with the lineup. I think tonight is just, it can go either way in terms of what Leafs team. I think it's a very big choose your own adventure evening tonight because it can go both ways, right? You're coming in here after 3 straight wins. You beat 2 good teams in a row. There's a natural little, well, we could take our foot off the gas a little bit here. We're back in the good spot. We're back in the playoffs. Or they could still be riding high and be like, hey, we got another good team. We got to test ourselves against another good team that we already lost to this year. I really feel that this has the chance of going one of 2 ways. They just get the barn doors blow off. They play like they did against Carolina and Boston. It's a hard thing to figure out. That's why this team's so fun to talk about because I literally have no idea what to expect.
They can't go in with the same recipe of a road game in Carolina where you're not bringing your best for 20, 25 minutes and you're playing rope-a-dope and you find ways to hold on and then wait for your game breakers to show up. That would be a recipe for disaster against a Vegas team tonight.
It would be. It's funny, going into a lot of games, I understand it wasn't the case this past weekend, but earlier this year it was like, boys, this San Jose team, worst defensive team in the NHL. And then it was Anaheim, terrible defensive team, Montreal, Arizona, you name it. The defensive teams they've played have struggled. Vegas is actually the best defensive team in the NHL or one of the best defensive teams in the NHL. So, they have a different offensive challenge tonight than what they've been dealing with so far this season.
I would say good news, I guess, on the goaltending horizon with Matt Murray expected to take full practice tomorrow.
Yeah, we got a little update on both the goalies today at practice from old Sheldon Keefe. Do you want to hear the clips?
Yeah, let's go to Sheldon Keefe with our first Kyper's Clipper of the day.
He's feeling pretty good, all things considered. He went on the ice today to try to test it out and see how he is, and he's not, he's not full go or anything like that, but felt good. But he's not going to be available for us this week, so I mean, the timeline is uncertain. We call it week to week at this point, but the fact he's on the ice today and feeling good enough to do that is an encouraging sign.
And he was speaking of Samsonov.
Yeah, correct. So he was talking about Samsonov there, who's week to week now. And
But didn't sound week to week. Sounded like week what we have to classify him as that. But
I am surprised he's on the ice.
Well, it's this week, not going to be.
yeah,
and then the following week is another week. So that is this week to week. So it's week to week.
Yeah, but it feels day to day. He's like 8 days away.
Yeah, maybe.
I've got him, 10 to 12.
I think 9.63. You know what's funny is someone shared the clip of you and I arguing over Jack Campbell's contract last year, and I was like 4 to 5, and you were like 5 to 6, and it was 5. Like me too. We both said the number, but the point is, usually when we do these sort of things, we find it pretty good. So if you're 10 to 12 and I'm 8 to 10, let's call it 10.
Excuse me.
You want your 2-day buffer?
I won that one.
The Campbell one?
Yes.
I was 4.5, 5. You were 5 to 6. It's 5.
Well, come on. I mean, a guy that's never followed hockey in his life could have guessed between 4.5 and 6.
Well, no, I took to 5 as my ceiling.
What we did.
I know. That's a good point.
So then when do we think we'll see Mr. Samsonov? Won't be this week because it's week to week. So they play Golden Knights, Penguins, Canucks for the rest of the week.
This is where
Devils against next Thursday, November 17th.
Yes.
This is where the Leafs have to be ultra careful and conservative. We are talking about injuries that could plague goalies all year long. If you do not nip this in the bud and there's any chance that they're coming in even at 85 or 90%, you are running a real risk when it comes to goaltenders. This is not a groin for a player. This is a guy that has to get up and down for 2.5 hours.
So it's November 8th. There's a game against the Devils on the 17th. That's next Thursday, which is a week and 2 days. I'll take that one. There's one on Saturday, the 19th, against the Sabres. That gives you an extra 2 days and gets in your window. You're going to call that one? Because you play the Saturday night? That's 11 days from now?
Yeah.
Okay. Either way, it's around there.
You'd have to run a few practices, I think, where there's no doubt at all that whatever had ailed them is completely gone.
So
that's all.
So let's see. That leaves 4 games prior to my guess, 5 games prior to yours. Let's hear what Sheldon had to say about Matt Murray and see if Matt Murray is going to return before those 5 games.
Murray got to skate a long day today for him, lots of work. It's the first time, being in one of our practice settings, and I'm told physically he feels good. Just continue to monitor that and see how that goes. The plan would be for tomorrow for his first full practice, and of course that's a big milestone for him to get through in his recovery, but physically feels good and strong. Just a matter of building him back up towards seeing shots and pucks from guys in a practice setting.
And we are talking about a guy that's well known for being hurt.
Yep. He's in today, full practice tomorrow. What do we think? What does that mean? The timeline on Murray? We're just going to play speculating doctors here today.
If he's 7
days from his first practice.
7 days of really good practices minimum.
Okay, so he's not back before, unless it's the Tuesday the 15th a week today. No chance.
That's my feeling anyways. Come on,
So we're going,
but we have to factor in what is the temperature of the water here, and it's cooled down. It's okay. So it does buy them time with this situation. If they would have lost both games on the weekend, would there be a sense of get one of these guys back in ASAP? Yeah, that would exist, don't you think?
It may be. With Murray, I don't think it doesn't matter, to your point. Like, you need him to be all the way better and all that. With Samsonov, I think they must be happy that this guy tried to get on the ice today. I've seen Sheldon and Kyle with goaltenders before and be like, it's like you can't say anything to them. You're not allowed to. The strength people are there. Like, everyone's like, yeah, it's like you can't go out and tell the guy, get in there.
Okay. Did we not witness that in the documentary with Frederick Anderson?
I bet they want someone to just try to play through something a little. Like, when are you just not allowed to ask for a little, like, if it's not going to make the injury worse, can you go out there and just see?
Well, that's probably that's probably something that Keith battles with the 100 sports science people. Right? That tell him. I mean, that's probably what the Freddie Anderson thing was, with the no communication with him and not talking to him. He probably talks to a guy that figures out when he's
they come in and they tell Sheldon who's available to him that day.
Right.
It used to be the player and the coach would talk and you talk to the trainer and whatever. Now they basically come into the coach and say, here's who's on, available to you.
And now now Samsonov's on the ice today. So Keith probably would have got to have a conversation with him and talk to him. But I agree. It's probably a breath of fresh air to see the goalie
like go out there
on the ice.
Okay, well, good to know. At least you tried.
Seeing how it feels. Like you could even hear him in that clip being like, yeah, it was nice to see him out there. Like, oh my God, that's allowed?
Yeah.
Anyways.
Shalgren gives up the bad early goal in Carolina, but essentially does what he was supposed to do, and that's just make the saves that you're supposed to make and buy Samsonov and Murray time. And tonight would go a long way for that attitude as well.
What's interesting is the Friday-Saturday back-to-back. Like, are we definitely now going to see Keith Petruzzelli get an NHL start?
Mm-hmm.
By the way, it was the Pittsburgh Penguins who ate Casimir Kaskasuo's lunch in his one NHL start when the Leafs were like, maybe he's ready. They got the Penguins twice, Friday and Tuesday coming up.
In about 30-plus minutes, we're going to get Jason Bukala, former director of amateur scouting for Florida, on.
Awesome.
Doing some work with Sportsnet as an analyst. I want to get his thoughts on
Keith Petruzzelli. You didn't want to say it.
I was going to jump in there.
Petruzzelli.
Yeah. Whatever it is.
Did you catch a little bit of his interview? From the media?
Did I
He's
ever?
just so giddy.
He's
just like, it's Christmas morning, man, and put me in, coach.
Yeah.
I love it. I loved it.
Why? I mean, that's what you've grinded your whole life for. You're dying for a shot. Like, oh my God, you get in there, like maybe you get lit up, but maybe you have the game of your life. Like, you may not get these many more kicks at a can. Like, you're dying to get in there. You could tell in his interview he is. So,
yeah, that's awesome. You like to have that attitude than timid and scared.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And he's come a long way in a very short period of time, has he not?
He has. And he's been good everywhere. It's just been that path. He went through the college ranks where you don't play a ton of hockey. Then you play in the coast where it's disorganized mayhem, and he was very, very good.
When is
Matt 6-0
as a Marlies? Yeah.
When's Matt Murray eligible to come off? Wasn't it? I forget how long it was, but like he's still got a ways to go on the LTIR situation too. I think so. This is going to be the things, unless, I mean, Citarvelli wrote a thing yesterday for a Daily Face-Off talking about guys who are available. I mean, put Korpisalo's name out there. There's other names. Like, I think Samsonov would have to be way more hurt for them to do that, right? Like, I think.
Yeah, it depends if you think that Shalgren is a viable backup or not, I guess, before you rule anything out.
But, I mean, according to he's on the horizon, Murray, so. I mean, whatever the hell on the horizon. It's like a old Western. Oh, Matt Murray on the horizon.
we can talk more about that, but Citarvelli threw out some names: Jonas Korpisalo, James Reimer, Jonathan Quick, Dan Vladar, Anton Khudobin. Those names are out there as potential trade targets. Were the Leafs to want to?
My first thought on any goaltender that they would try to pick up either because of injuries or because Samsonov and Murray by the trade deadline are underperforming, it would have to be someone off of an expiring contract. It would have to be.
Why is that? Sorry, did I miss something you said there?
No, I'm just saying whether or not the Leafs are looking for a goaltender because of injuries or they underperform later on in the season at the trade deadline. My first thought is you look for a goalie who's got an expiring contract.
Why would you want it expiring versus
because
having
you don't
term?
Want to make a commitment to anybody at this point. If you're struggling,
you got Murray for one more year. You don't know if you want Samsonov or not.
100%.
Vladar is interesting to me. Is a 25-year-old guy who looks like a potential NHL starter. Could he be Jack Campbell for you?
He's looking for a new contract?
Yes. Oh, no. He has a 2-year extension after this year at $2.2 million per year. It's a pretty reasonable price. I don't know. He cost real.
Is he not what Samsonov was in the offseason? A guy that...
No, he was there.
No, I'm saying, would you look at him much like the Leafs looked at Samsonov in the same light that this guy's got experience, but he hasn't proven he could be a number one goaltender?
Yeah.
Do you want to go down that path?
Yeah. Right now he's an .865 save percentage, so maybe you'd be a little hesitant. But yeah, he has shown ability. You're right. He hasn't proven he can be a number one yet. Still no easy answers.
Did Frank have quick on there?
He did.
Okay. So again, we're talking about expiring contracts. We're talking about minimal money left on the cap. He's at over 6, is he not? So that
5.8.
That would shrink significantly.
Yeah.
I have Varlamov as well. I don't know if Frank had his name on, but if I'm not mistaken, he's got a expiring contract.
And Sorokin's pretty locked in.
Talbot is another name that I had. I don't know if Frank had that name.
No, I think Ottawa could get. That's interesting. Those are great names.
I'm just assuming that Cam Talbot would be in a position that they're going to move him for an asset. At that point, probably Ottawa's not in the mix as we projected at the beginning of the season. Would the Leafs... I like Cam Talbot a lot,
Well,
by
he
the
got
way.
a tough ride in Mini where they were basically like, it's Flowers' show now. And he was like, okay.
Yeah.
Get me out of here then.
Now, Jake Allen just recently re-signed, didn't he, in Montreal?
Yeah.
But he would still be, I think, in a position where Montreal could make a decision on his future. Where's he
Here's
at?
what I hear. I hear from you that there are options, and all of them are like, I don't know, maybe. You know, like, are we better now? And maybe we're better. Yeah, he's 2.85 for the next. Oh no, 3.8 next 2 years after this.
Yeah, that's a bigger
more than you'd
commitment.
like.
For Jake Allen?
Yeah.
But at least I'm giving you names that are bona fide NHLers.
Yes. Talbot.
That's all.
Varlamov, Allen, for sure. So there's options.
No.
Yeah. Well, maybe.
I do at some point want to. There we go. I do want to talk about Nick Robertson at some point. Do you want to do lines? What do you want to do?
Why don't we do Keefe on his new look lines, and then we'll follow it up with your Nick Robertson.
All right.
A few different things, but a lot of it, frankly, is just how I feel best set up for us to compete in the game tonight and against this opponent. And we played them obviously not long ago, and had a sense of what didn't work in that game, and wanted to try some different things here. Being on home ice and controlling last change and things like that a little bit differently. I just like this setup here, and it's the way it works. It's a bit of a hybrid of what we did the other night, but it's more of a reflection of how I want the line set up for today's game against this team.
Translation: these guys are really good, and I think this is the best lineup we have.
I like that analysis. I don't know if, I
Not
can
the
see
time
them
for
thinking
experimenting.
It is. Right.
Although he did a little bit, but not too much.
Okay. What are your main points on Nick Robertson?
Nick Robertson, should we do the coach first or me first?
Oh, you go first.
So we're watching some Robertson shifts before we came in here today, just to try to figure out where the coach has him and where we have him. And, my analysis I think I used to you guys was just like, he wants it so badly to the point where he can't seem to sit in the play, read the play, be patient. Like he's just, he's an Alaskan sled dog that just wants to go, 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 go. And it's like in hockey, it's not always time to go, 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 right? There's some evaluating. The comparison that came to my mind in my head, and this is probably ridiculous, but I'm at Costco the other day, There's a guy, first day on the job. He's taking my stuff out of my cart, and they're telling him that's his job, and he's loading it, and he puts it on there, and he stands beside the empty cart. And, like, they were like, okay, bring the cart to the other side and, like, put the groceries in the other side. But he'd been told to do the first thing. That's Nick Robertson. You tell him to do one thing, he'll do it. And then it's like, you tell me what the next thing is. Tell me what my next job is. Like, there's no reading, reacting, understanding of why I'm supposed to be here. He's just...
And you still see that because...
youthful.
There was a sense as early as 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, that he was now next level stuff.
Well, he can score, right? If you give it to him in that area, he knows the one thing that he's supposed to do as a Costco employee of the Toronto Maple Leafs is shoot it in the net. And he does that really, really well. I just feel like he is tunnel vision on doing this one job for me. And it hasn't been a well-rounded hockey player so far.
Didn't Montreal's Wi-Fi defenseman there,
Jack-Eye? Arbor Jack-Eye?
Didn't he actually work at Costco?
Yeah.
At one time?
he learned how to play the whole game.
Are you not mixing them up?
No, I am not mixing up Nick Robertson and Arbor Jack-Eye.
I think that's the last time those two will get compared.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
The one thing I will say about Nick Robertson is they desperately need him to
work.
To be a fixture, to be a threat. Because right now, it is really still offensively off the backs of Matthews, Marner, Tavares, and Nylander. If they don't get any type of consistent look, and it was Mulligan, it was Yarncroc with the goal in Carolina, but if there isn't others who are chipping in, man, it is going to be tough on this hockey club.
Well, and it just gets tougher when that doesn't happen because your opposition goes, okay, they got one trick or, we call it a 4-trick pony. You need some.
Well, I mean, that's kind of probably why he's put Bunting down in the bottom half of the lineup too, right? Kind of try to infuse what's supposed to be a bit more of an offensive player down there to kind of spread the joy around, you would imagine, right?
And they're going to have to be patient here. And there might be some tough shifts for Sheldon to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where it gets really tricky between coaches, general manager, and presidents is that they're still in the development process of Nick Robertson. But then you got coaches that are feeling like, I got to win the next shift. I got to win this period. I got to come up with a point or two.
Right,
in this
pressure's
game.
on my job.
And I don't have the confidence or the wherewithal to hold on to Nick's spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that when you look down the roster, there isn't anyone else. There isn't anyone that's close to him. Bunting is, but Bunting isn't enough.
I agree. You look at some more analytic stuff like expected goals for. No forward on the Leaf has lower expected goals for than Nick Robertson, than outside of like Wayne Simmons and Abe Kubel. In terms of defensively, he gives up more than just about everyone. Like, it just hasn't worked though, Kyper. So I understand that they want to develop this guy and get him to a place where they have another offensive option. But you're right. How much, like you said, it's okay. It's going to look bad for a little while. How long can it not work before you go, okay, well, we got to win hockey games. This is not, equal opportunity house hockey stuff.
Would we like to hear the head coach talk about Nick Robertson?
Yeah, he knows more than us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's an age thing; it's a performance thing. I think it's, I think that's part of the growth of a young player to really establish himself in the league, right? We've talked about it a lot as we've gone through, we've had a lot of players moving in and out of the lineup and such, and I've been asked the question, like, what are you sort of looking for different players there? I'm looking for a guy to step up and really grab a hold of it, right? And Dennis Malgin's game the other night is a terrific example of a player just goes out, and has one of those nights where it's, where if I came in today and told you Dennis Malgin was going to be out, I would be stupid. And it would be obvious to everyone that I would be stupid there. And that's what you're looking for is a player to make it obvious that they belong, that they're there and they're making an impact. Sometimes it's offensively, sometimes it's defensively, sometimes it's a bit of both. You know, so that's really what you're looking for any of these guys that are moving in and out of the lineup. And then once that happens, you start to get traction, and then your spot is there, and off you go. So, you know, to me, Nick hasn't been able to do that here yet.
Well, and he hit it right on the nail. Is that okay? It's nice that you get these one-offs, but where is the traction that he's talking about when it starts becoming the norm on the expectations? And yes, we agree with you, Sheldon, that, you know, going into game 14, you would look stupid if you took Mulligan out of the lineup. But between game 1 and 12, when you had him in the lineup, we also kind of said that you kind of look, you know, not like the lightest and brightest light bulb in it. So once these guys can show, if Mulligan can bring a lot of that look that we saw in Carolina again tonight, and that's the trick. It's like those golfers,
He's not gonna, man. He's not. I don't mean tonight. I just mean you can't play like that every night.
It's golfers on the circuit.
Yeah.
They're all can hit it 340.
Denny's a Corn Ferry player. That's what you're saying?
Who can bring it when you're supposed to? Who can
consistently?
Who can just consistently be good enough that you're not being questioned every night?
Well, I've seen this over my time with the Marlies and just over my time in the media too, where the Leafs are like, okay, we know how good Seth Griffith is. You should see this guy with a puck. He's a cheat code, and then he's great and does some things, and then it doesn't happen for a month.
He's had one undeniable night, and it was his first game.
Who's that?
Robertson,
right. And this is the same as Nick Patan or whoever. You're right. And so having someone who has a night like that, if he can do that once every 10 games, I think you put up with the stuff in the middle. But it is tough when you're riding through some of these games where you're not getting anything from him when he's ahead of the play to say, yeah, just take some time. Yeah. I do think this is a frustrating thing for the Leafs that their players haven't developed internally, whether Sandin or Robertson, Dermott.
We can talk about Nick Robertson having as much skill, and as Austin had said earlier, I think in the summer, that he's got a better shot than me, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. But when he's at his best, and when Mulligan was at his best on Sunday night, there is a physical element to both their games that you don't necessarily think of first. But when we saw Robertson score those 2 goals, like one of them was off the wall where he beat a man physically.
Right, he took contact from Jamie Benn, spun off.
Thank you. Yeah. And went to the net and scored. And that's the part that needs to be consistent to either get you your looks or get someone else a look. But if you don't have that physical presence, and they're going up against a very big, skilled team tonight, if I don't see both these guys physically engaged, then there's a chance, to Sheldon Keefe's point, that there won't be any traction.
Yeah, I'm almost surprised that Simmons or someone isn't in, being that it is Vegas. You know, it is a really. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, are they prepared to battle like that physically, night in, night out?
I don't know. I just know that, like, Robertson, his shot map or whatever, he's nothing in front of the net. Like, he is having trouble getting to those areas and creating. So is it a physical thing where, that's a big ask, I think, of those players. I think it's something that takes time, and I don't think you can force. He's just got to get older and stronger and more mature.
This is where I give Michael Bunting more credit, is that he isn't the heaviest guy. We know he's not the toughest guy. There are some warts there, but this guy's, he battles and he's in the fight, and he'll scratch and crawl and kick a puck over to Austin behind the net.
Yes.
And this is where at least Bunting is in the fight.
Yep. You know, this is such a thing for coaches, is finding what you're talking about, guys who can take that internal step. Did you happen to see Daryl Sutter's quotes today? I don't think I even passed it along to you guys, but he was asked about his workload, heavy workload of some of his D. Let me read a Daryl Sutter quote on his guys in internal development. He said, it's too much. We've got guys we played them 23, 27 minutes. He says that means those guys are doing everything they can. And this depth stuff we talked about in the summer, it's a bunch of BS. There isn't one guy in training camp that even took a step forward toward being a 6th or 7th or 8th defenseman, and we're playing them now. So it's time to ripen the apple a bit for them. That's this situation with Robertson. They wanted Sandin to be more, and he hasn't taken that step. It's teams dying for their own ELC guys to find it. And I don't know. You're right. Bunting seems to have found a way, and it's the consistency of effort and the play when you're not scoring.
Yeah. And I'm okay with Bunting on the third line. I never had Bunting as a top winger.
He's there for the reason Robertson's on the second line. They don't have other options.
But at least you know what you're going to get with him.
Yeah, I agree. Why don't do you want to listen to the Sheldon quote on Bunting? Let's do that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. Obviously we've tried to give it some time to work through that, and Bunce is still like he's competing his ass off out there. He's involved in everything. It's not that part of it. It's just hasn't come together both for he and his line mates. So a little bit of change in the chemistry here today. A little bit change in responsibility. It's sort of not unlike the way it was last year, to be honest. I mean, he didn't start on that line. Like he earned his way on that line. He played lower in the lineup, kind of found his own game. So, taking a little bit of a step back here and try to give him that opportunity to just focus on himself, maybe a little bit of a lighter load in terms of matchups and responsibility. And we've done this previously in, this season, and it didn't last long before we moved him back. And I suspect it'll be similar. But I think it is important for him to just, kind of reset a little bit in terms of his process and what he has to think about or worry about when he's playing.
I got a question for you, Kyper. How much easier would it be to commit yourself to a role like the one Bunting's been giving tonight if you have already been paid and given a longer-term contract? Because, if I'm Bunting, all I'm thinking about is I need numbers to get my money.
Yeah, I think that I think that would be a concern for sure, and that would be playing in your wheelhouse. And it's not hard to figure out that if I somehow, some way could muster a second season like my first, we are talking about
McKay of money.
$25 million US.
Yeah, right now, what's that, 163 Canadian?
And this isn't a way to get there.
No.
So,
but it's a more realistic look at what he is as a player.
It is. And hopefully he's mature enough to understand that and just work with the parameters that he is now in. And we've had conversations throughout the beginning of this season or even last season saying, yeah, but he's playing with Marner and Matthews. And when they're elite, how many guys go from 20 to 30 points or 30 to 50 points or 40 to 60?
I get 25 points on that line.
Wow.
Today.
So
I'm convinced of it.
If he understands he's not there
You're
anymore.
tapping home 5 a year.
Yeah.
But there's still other ways he can make himself valuable. And if it's not a 60-point season or a new contract next season that starts with a 5.
A 5?
Hold on.
I know it is a 5.
No! What are we on?
No, can you?
Whoa.
How rudely did you interrupt me?
Start with a 5. That
He
deserves to be
correctly
rudely
interrupted you.
yes.
It starts with a 5 when you're going back-to-back jacks on 60-plus points, boys. Okay?
Okay.
It does.
Okay.
But once you can get over the fact that ain't happening anymore, that you aren't with Matthews and Marner, and you're not rolling the 1-1 or the 0-2 night in, night out, then what's your next alternative? Playing down in the lineup. A 10 to 15 goal season for Bunting, playing the role that he is now with the likes of Engvall and Yarncroc and Kampf and Mulligan might be a pretty solid season.
So one of the most popular things in sports talk radio,
he's going to really have to get going to get to 60.
Yeah, one of the most popular things in sports talk radio is trade proposals and contract proposals, where you say, "Who says no? Who says no to the Nick Paul contract if it's proposed to Michael Bunting? Just 7 times 3.2."
Me.
Okay, well, you don't get to.
You're saying
who says no? Does Bunting or does the team say no to that? Either team or either side, if that's proposed, 7 times 3.2. Right now, if that comes to me and I'm Michael Bunting, I'm like, okay. I'll take the years.
I'm not giving it to him in November.
Well, in January, what if he's on the 60-goal pace again?
60-point pace.
Whatever.
Yeah.
60-point pace. I shouldn't say whatever. That's significantly
I'll
different.
happily worry about that then. My team's in really good shape again. If Bunting can get himself back on a 60-point pace.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not necessarily handing out Michael Bunting a 7-year contract at $3 million.
You just can't pay him a big AAV. You can't give him $5 million or you don't get to keep him. If he costs that much, you don't get the player.
Well, the point's moot because if he is able to kind of show back-to-back seasons of that, someone else will pay you that. They will.
Someone else, yeah, so he'd be fine, but the Leafs would be
fine, but the Leafs would have to move on off of that.
Right.
They're better off actually slotting him where he is now and keeping him on a 3 times 3.
3 times 3 would be amazing. That'd be amazing.
Like the Kerfoot contract?
It's just like
what's it,
you look at who the Leafs have let walk out the door in terms of scrappiness and puck retrieval and whatever, whether it's Hyman, Mikheyev. I know Brown didn't leave, but, some of the guys that have been better at getting pucks back. Bunting would be another guy. Not that he's a great forechecker necessarily, but he's in the muck, right?
Bunting would be way more effective if there were more Buntings on the team.
And he'd be more effective, I think, on a line of guys who played that way. Like if played him with Cizikas and someone like that, where just they're all out there doing it, it would be mayhem for sure. That's not the Leafs. That's not you, pal.
You're not that guy, pal.
You're not that guy, pal.
We were just talking about Robertson before, and it kind of came to my mind. Like, they're playing him on the second line again tonight. That's just such a glaring hole for the Leafs.
No.
They're like,
just
please help.
Look at the left side, boys.
I know.
Kerfoot, Robertson, Austin Reese, and Bunting.
All good players. All good players.
But that's what I'm saying.
That's not a Stanley Cup left side, my friend.
Then why don't you? Do you think the Leafs are willing to include Robertson to make that left side more championship caliber?
I think Robertson needs to play well enough to have other teams think that they want to give up an asset.
I've got the Leafs right now where there is no stone unturned. I would go. And, I've talked to enough people about Matthew Nyes. There are some that
he's a left winger, right?
Don't have him as a lock A+ prospect, that he still has great potential, but
he's not a savior.
They wouldn't deem him an absolute untouchable to try to get this Leaf team in a place where they could take a crack at winning a Stanley Cup this year or next.
That's good. I want that mentality.
So
me too.
You're asking me Nick Robertson? I would think Matthew Nyes, for a deal that you feel, Kyle Dubas, you cannot refuse, should be in play.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Kyle just burns it all down on the way out the door, and if it doesn't work, someone else's problem. And then we got to do a Leaf show for 4 years before they're good again.
No. The good news is that if you get guys back healthy, and Liljegren was a big one, and I really believe that Liljegren is readjusted. Everybody's kind of role and responsibilities on the back end, and he has added a lot of depth. Mm-hmm. It just seems that they are a little calmer. Their overall game's a little calmer.
Yeah, Gio Sandina's a smart pair.
Back.
Brody Hall's better.
But now you get a really good look, hopefully in the next week or two, to say, okay, now that we got everybody healthy, unfortunately, we're still waiting on goaltenders.
And Muzz is just, we're assuming, not a...
Muzz is done.
Okay.
Okay, it's over.
Wait on him.
No, I shouldn't say it's over. I should say that you treat it as if it's over.
You have to act like it is.
You have to act like it's over. You're moving on. You're going to use that money, and if it comes to a point where he wants to come back, may have to wait till the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Deal with it then. But once you have an idea of what you truly have, now you could start truly shopping for what you think are deficiencies in your roster.
Right.
One quick light note before we go and get to Jason Bukala. Do you like the championship belt for the Leafs as like a player of the game? Do you prefer something you can wear as a hat? Do you prefer the ball? What did you guys have when you guys played? Because I'm always interested in that.
I'm going to stay out of this super fan conversation. I'll let you just go with it.
Did you have something? You guys didn't have anything when you played in the NHL? There was never a player of the game stuff back then?
Gosh. I don't think so, to be honest.
I don't think.
No?
There's like a game puck the coach might give out or whatever.
Did we ditch the Raptor basketball?
That was
that
one
like
year.
3 years ago?
Yeah, that was I think that was a couple years ago. That was when Kawhi was still on the team.
So what does the belt represent?
It's like a wrestling thing.
Here's a bunch of people are going to hate on me for this, but like, I don't like it. Dubas is a big wrestling guy, and I can't help but feel like wrestling's just it's just for my nerdiest friends.
Yeah, agreed.
I just
listen. Whatever you need to win, knock your socks off, boys.
But you
I don't
guys
begrudge anyone
never
liking
had like
it. I used to watch it, but
never had anything.
Nothing
That's
for
why
me.
I wanted to bring it up because I thought you guys would have something good. But you're both looking at me like
we had a case, a cold case waiting for us. That's what we had.
The coldest beer to the best player.
That was our hat and belt.
All right.
I was in the East Coast, we were just chewing Percocet on the bus. Just kidding.
As our boy Sammy alluded to, Jason Bukala, Director of Amateur Scouting for Florida, former, is now with Sportsnet. He's going to give us his thoughts on Nick Robertson, Matthew Nyes, and the potential out there for the Leafs to maybe pull something off down the road. We also got George McPhee, President of Hockey Operations for Vegas. He's going to join us in the next hour as we continue to tee up Golden Knights versus the Leafs. Real Kyper and Bourne after the break.
From the City News 680 Traffic Center, I'm Carrie Prunskis. Eastbound on the 401 approaching Mississauga Road, the left lane is now blocked. It's due to a collision that's just happened, so it's getting backed up on the eastbound 401 from Winston Churchill towards Mississauga Road. We had an earlier problem heading into the Durham region, so it's still much slower than usual on the eastbound 401 from Markham Road and the Collectors and from east of Nielsen and the Express to east of Whites. More than 50% of food waste in Toronto homes is avoidable. Reduce food waste by storing food properly and using up leftovers. Learn more at toronto.ca/food waste.
This is Real Kyper and Bourne on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
All right, as promised, Jason Bukala, former director of amateur scouting for Florida, current analyst. We welcome him on the show now. Jason, is that last name short for Bukopoulos? Are you Greek?
It absolutely is not. I'd be getting in trouble with my Polish brotherhood if I went down that road. So I'll stick with it.
Thanks for joining us. Big game tonight. We want to start with the goaltending situation with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think you had a scouting report for Sportsnet.ca that talked about Petru. I'm really having trouble with
Petruzzelli.
Okay. And basically, what are the odds that this guy sees any light of day in a Toronto Maple Leaf uniform anytime soon?
Well, it's been an interesting 10 days, hasn't it? Even from start from the beginning of the year. You know, he was like fourth or fifth on the depth chart to start the year. He moved up because Joe Wall obviously still recovering from shoulder surgery. But with the current situation and their games this week, Vegas tonight, Pittsburgh on Friday, and then, of course, Vancouver coming in on Saturday, I see him getting a start on Saturday night against Vancouver. I don't see Shalgren going back-to-back. I see that this might be a chance for the kid to get a chance. He's off to a good start in the American League. I've tracked this guy I started looking back on my reports like 6 years now, from when he was in Muskegon in the USHL, and then obviously went over to Quinnipiac and played out his four full years there. He's a big goalie, 6'5" guy. You guys know the details. I mean, he's a new breed, kind of an NHL goalie, the bigger style. Although there are some smaller guys that are having some success right now. Is he ready for this, Kyper? Not sure. To be perfectly honest, great start in the American League, but he's a little bit he looks a little lethargic moving east-west, and I think a lot of it has to do with his size. But it's going to take him some time to adapt to, just how fast things happen around your crease at the NHL level. And he's the kind of goalie that, if he gets outside the post at all and a rebound spills too far to his left or right, even though he's got length with his body, he's got to push real quick to get there. And I think there's going to be some adjustment here in his game. So it's a nice story, I guess, for him, right? And he earned it. But it's unfortunate at the same token that the Leafs find themselves in this position right now.
That was sufficiently terrifying for Leafs fans, I think. Just Hockey Night in Canada coming up. Yeah, he's not great laterally. No big deal. In listening to, I guess in talking about the plans for the Leafs going forward this season and how they may need to load up at the deadlines, kind of an all or nothing year, we were talking about some prospects. One of the names that came up was Matthew Knies. And before we get into Knies specifically, I was curious about the process of evaluation in terms of cross-checking. Like, how do you know how Knies would be compared to a guy coming out of the OHL or a guy who's in the American League or guys who are, the 13th forward? How are you able to look at all these different people and get some sense of what Knies might be like when he's able to graduate and get in the NHL?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's an important thing for people to realize that certain prospects come out of certain territories in the world and are more ready for the North American pro game and maybe the NHL. Knies is going to have a little bit more of a runway playing against bigger, stronger guys at the college level, although he's young. Guys that come out of Europe, call it the SHL, for example, in Sweden, they're generally better prepared to hit the ground running in North America. They've been living away from home. Major junior players do that too, but it's different over there. They live in their own apartments and, cook their meals, do their laundry, do all the stuff like when Kyper played, on your own. It's not like North Bay, Kyper, when you're, boarding somewhere up there. So
craft dinner,
Northern Ontario. So it's a different type of scenario for all these guys. I have to say that generally speaking, major junior kids need some time in the American Hockey League to develop. I think it's the safest way to go. I don't think that all those guys are ready right for the NHL, but in a situation like Knies, he's been already performing against older, bigger, stronger bodies already, and he's closer to being NHL ready than some of these other prospects. So it takes, you know what, Bourne, it takes time, it takes experience. After I started traveling around the world, for 18 years, I started to get a better feel of like Liga and the SHL and how kids are better prepared, and it just takes time to understand it.
We're talking to Jason Bukala, former director of amateur scouting for Florida, current analyst for Sportsnet. When you were in Florida, Jason, is it kind of a standard thing from club to club that you grade your prospects on an A+ or an A or a B-? And how hard is it to be an A+ or an untouchable?
Well, it's really changed over the years. Before I was in Florida, I was in Nashville, and that's exactly how David Poyle graded his prospects, A+ down. In Florida, we had a number system, and we would grade all the depth charts across the league. I don't know in today's NHL, and I guess it depends from one team to another, your scenario, but in a cap world, I don't know that you can, unless you have a Connor McDavid coming through or, that's a obscene example, but somebody that's really, really, like Logan Cooley, who hasn't hit the ground running in Arizona yet, I would say he's untouchable in terms of any trade discussions for that franchise right now. But overall, I don't think you have very many untouchables anymore, even in depth charts across the league. I don't think that NHL teams can look at it that way. There's too many things, too many moving parts. It's too unpredictable from year to year right now.
Okay, so where would you have Matthew Knies as a potential chip for the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Well, he's their best prospect, but across the entire league, he's what I call a 2.5 Kyper. He's not really a pure second line power forward goal scorer, but he's also not a 3. So he's like a high end 3, low end 2. He's a big body, but he's not an A+ prospect when you start to look at some other prospects in other organizations. He's getting tons of attention in Toronto. I know there's a lot of hype around this kid, but it's going to be a little bit of a slow burn when he arrives. The thing that he does better than their other prospects, he's going to be hard to play against in the hard areas. So if he doesn't produce offense, he's going to bump and grind along the wall. He's going to extend a play around the crease. He's going to do some of those other things that the team needs for their skill players to produce. So I see him more like that, like a power, mid-range secondary scoring option.
So just a better Engvall for Sammy. You just crushed every Leaf Nation listener right now.
No, it's
you
a
did,
reality
Kyper,
check. Yeah,
with that
that's right.
angle.
It is, hotly contested around here is, how valuable that is. How much do you want to mortgage the future? One of the other guy, I know we've talked about him with you before, Nick Robertson, coach puts him up on the second line today. He just can't seem to find it when he's not shooting it in the net. I made some obscene analogies trying to make sense of exactly, what I see in him as a prospect still. Do you still consider these guys like Robertson in the organization, playing in the NHL as a prospect, as someone who's developing?
I think Nick Robertson now, as he sits today, is closer to his finished product than he's ever been. You analyzed it well at the beginning of the year. He's quicker to space, like he's a little bit got more jump out of the gates.
Mm-hmm.
He can separate a little bit more with the puck on his stick. Like he's skating up ice with the puck on his stick and making people back off more. But the reality of it is that I'm not so sure he just is what he is. Like he's going to be streaky. He's going to score at times. But is he going to be a guy that you stare down at the bench with 3 minutes left on the road in Colorado in the spring and say, this guy's going to get the big one for us? I mean, you have other bodies like that. I get it. But you need to find those secondary layers, right? And the short answer is I'm buying low on that. I'm not convinced of it, guys. And I love the work the kids put in. But I don't see how the Leafs could have Malgin and Robertson going at the same time in their lineup to have sustained success. I think one of those guys is going to get replaced by a different type of body.
Okay, Jason, you're my director of amateur scouting, and I call you in my office, and I want your impressions of my left side. I tell you, I got Kerfoot, Robertson, Aston Reese, and Bunting, and you tell me what?
I tell you that I think Bunting, first of all, Aston Reese looks like he's a step off for me with his pace right now for whatever reason. So I'm hoping that there's going to be a little more jump there. Bunting, I think that Bunting needs continuity with his line mates in order to get the results that are even close to last year. He might have caught a little bit of lightning in a bottle there. I'm looking down at some other names like Robertson, Engvall if he plays the wing even. I don't love it, Kipper. I'm not going to, I don't know how else to put it to you. Kerfoot, I love Kerfoot's speed. I just wish that he had a little bit more jam to go along with it sometimes. Like I wish he had a little more grind because he can get places so quick, and he does compete. But sometimes you got to go get it yourself, bump a guy, and then escape with your feet because he's quick. Like I'd like to see a little bit more of that if that makes sense to you guys.
Yeah.
So just let me just jump in quickly. How do I improve that? You're my director of amateur scouting. Do we trade for that? Is there a name out there that you would think that it would be attainable for us to get?
Not right now. The guys that I would have, like a Lawson Krause in Arizona, I wrote last spring, and then going into the summer before he signed his extension, I think that's the kind of guy that they needed to go after. Big body, can kill penalties, mean, 20-plus goal scorer. That's the kind of body. But you and I both know today, in today's NHL, those guys are so valuable. They're not being given away for free now. Like, if you can sniff one out and find somebody on a bad day that they hate the player and get them, don't waste your time. Go get them because you'll never get them again.
Nick Paul.
Well, Nick Paul is another great example. Nick Paul is a great example. I would have traded for Nick Paul last year too, and his trajectory kept climbing from when he was a major junior until Ottawa, which you saw. But there's a role guy, right? There's a role for him. And before that, Barclay Goodrow in Tampa did the same type of thing. So, is there going to be a guy like that pops between now and March? Maybe. Is it going to be hard to get him? Absolutely. Don't forget, at 50 contract max, if they move out a star player, they're going to have to move out other bodies to bring in at least one good guy or two good guys, because it's going to have to get very creative when they get to that point. So, I don't want to talk down on the team right now. I actually think that they have persevered here a little bit.
It's too late. It's too late for that.
They've persevered the last little bit, but the journey is long from finished.
Yeah, there are challenges for them for sure. One of the challenges that we've discussed too is the decor. Obviously, it's I don't want to say we're going to call it imperfect here today. There's some work to be done. Liljegren, not necessarily a big guy. Sandin, kind of the same way. No, you're just not a physical group. I want to get a sense on the trajectory of a guy like Sandin. I think they had something similar where they expected Dermott to take a step, and it didn't happen. Sandin kind of feels like that to me a little bit right now. How do you develop prospects while they play in the NHL? How do you help guys get better without falling behind as a team?
Really hard to do. I
Yeah.
mean, it's nearly impossible. Everything's happening too fast. The head coach has zero appetite to be developing a prospect on the back end in the NHL. I mean, he expects them to be ready to go. So I don't think you can. To be perfectly honest, I think these guys got to be ready to go. Sandin, he, for all the good that Sandin does, he presses with the puck sometimes, guys, and he gives the puck away in the worst possible areas of the ice and in the most, inopportune times. I'm hoping with more games played that he can get that out of his system. But, I mean, if you look at their decor right now, there's not a lot of protection for these guys, right? Like, so you're going to be exposed and you're going to be put in situations that expose some of your weaknesses because that decor is it's leaking some oil on any given night right now. But, again, they're persevering. I don't see a lot. Like, if Ben comes back in, there's marginal minutes, some safe minutes, I guess you would call it. Liljegren coming back in hopefully takes some pressure off of Hall. I don't see Mete being able to defend consistently enough, given the fact that he doesn't produce enough offense for his style of play.
Between now and the trade deadline, Jason, do you expect an impact trade, and do the Leafs have a prospect capital to do that?
No, I don't see it coming from the prospect pool unless you're going to start to include a Matthew Nyes in that equation. I think that it's going to be – we're probably going to have to revisit, depending on the status of the team, like a big name up front in relation to what they have to plug on their back end by that time. So I'm still kitty by the door on the goaltending. So I'm going to take pause for now and adjust on the fly. But they're all in, right? So they're going to do whatever they think they need to do.
Jason, really appreciate your time and your knowledge, your analysis on this. Thanks for doing this, man.
Anytime.
Thanks, man. Appreciate
guys.
it.
Jason Bukala.
Really, really good stuff.
Former director of amateur scouting for Florida. Yeah, that was fun. Hey, listen, you
Yes,
know
it
who
was.
you're talking to. You're talking to an experienced guy that's been down this path before. It was really good to hear his take.
It was. The question about the left wingers to me is like, you can't be good everywhere. You just can't. You truly, like with a salary cap, you kind of have to make some concessions here, there, everywhere. I feel like if you go through their top six, like you're accepting of some weakness. I just don't know how the Leafs can fix the problem that you see.
I also felt bad for Jason there because not like I felt bad. He gave great answers and it was a good on conversation, but it's like they've won some games here. Okay, they've won some games against some good teams, but there are some absolute holes and needs on this team. Like, it's not a perfect squad after beating two good teams in a row here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the conversations that we had the last couple of weeks are still floating around there in terms of the stuff that he pointed out. Like, he just brought up so many great points, and none of them were unfair, and he even was like, I don't want to be down on them. They've kind of righted the ship. But a lot of the stuff there he said was like, oh, God, he's right. Oh, God, he's right again. Like, like, were you not thinking that when he was
the
talking?
Nyes is a 2.5 was the most interesting takeaway for me.
I think we've been pretty consistent in terms of the way we wanted to look at the Toronto Maple Leafs this year. And it's like, you don't necessarily get caught up in wins or losses, but how they look to us, how they
as a potential Stanley Cup contender.
I can't watch a game from opening season puck drop to game 82 without always thinking, how would this look against this particular team in a best of 7 final, right? Or a best of 7 series.
Yeah,
sorry.
constantly it's the takeaway.
It's constantly.
Yeah.
For me, is that and I know the difference. I know when a team's playing 3 and 4 nights or coming off a road trip or need to get out just for the sake of a change. And the Leafs went through that already this early. Got to get out of town, right? Oh, my God, this is going to be the best thing for us. Let's get out of town. Let's go out west. Then you finish your last game in Anaheim, and it's like, I can't wait to get home, right?
Yeah.
Was that old saying that Harry Neal, can't win on home, can't win on the road. We're running out of places to play.
Yeah.
So
That's really good.
That's all I'm just constantly watching and thinking and observing out of the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's hard to imagine that the Leafs playing 30 minutes, 20 minutes, or 25 minutes, wherever you had it, against Carolina, bringing that to tonight's game against Vegas. Like that stuff,
No.
it does catch up to you.
But again, they were on the tail end of a back-to-back, and they traveled, and the game was 18 hours after the one end.
All factors.
So
all factors.
I totally get it. It is funny because, Sammy's talked about how the Buffalo Sabres fans are in their sweet spot right now. And when your team is turning the corner from garbage to good, you root for enough wins that you start to think about the big picture stuff like we do. The Leafs, to their credit, have won so much that the winning is taken for granted. Like, we just assume they're 7-4-2. We've talked about them like the Titanic is sinking here.
It's an awesome point.
They have earned their way to this point where everything is judged against the Stanley Cup and the Stanley Cup teams and the playoffs. And so that's why sometimes I worry we're a Leafs show. I do worry that sometimes we come off as negative about the Leafs, but it's almost like a coaching. I think you and I kind of almost act as coaches sometimes where it's like the standard isn't the other teams. It's the best teams.
Half the league stinks. Okay, can we just factor that in for a second?
Yes, we can.
How many nights do we look at rosters and go, "Oh my
God"? But it's to a credit that they're out of that group. They have elevated beyond that.
That's a dog's breakfast.
Yeah,
I'm just looking at all the
teams.
I'm looking at all the teams that stink, and there's a lot of stinky teams.
Yes,
there's a lot of stinky teams, but we have the Leafs not in that group.
Correct. Yes, and it's it's different. So I just want that clarification. If we come off as negative, it's because the standard is high.
Our bar is high.
Yes.
I got no problem telling the world that.
Yeah.
My bar is high for this team.
I think if the Leafs were legitimately bad, if they were like 23rd in the league, you and I could not do a show together. we would need like Steve Dangle as the other host or someone to paint a smile on it some days, because I don't know if we could do it.
It wouldn't be on YouTube. I couldn't go 2 hours without hitting somebody. We'd have to get it off YouTube.
Imagine this show 2014, 2015, like the Babs first year, the worst team in the league. And we're talking about Nick
Scram beat it.
Nick Spalling's contributions to the roster.
And the worst part is when they're trying to lose, right? And it's like, why are we even dissecting this? They don't want to be good. I just would have a very hard time with that. I don't.
So how many
years till we're there?
I was just saying, like, we probably thought 3, 4, 5 teams could act like that this year.
Like,
and to their credit, I mean, Montreal's the number one team we probably had that was going to just completely mail it in. And maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't know from here on in, but I don't know, is it serving them well right now? I think so.
Montreal?
Yeah.
I mean, Montreal is having a fun time being better than they expected. They're still a .458 winning percentage and 23rd in the league. They're still going to be at the
I have
bottom.
some close buddies who are Habs fans, and they love watching their team.
Having a great time.
Yes. And they're getting
Not
better.
having fun? Columbus.
Right? And Cole Caulfield is doing great.
Suzuki looks awesome as the captain. Like
they should be in a position for Connor Bedard.
Oof.
The Canucks need to make the move, boys. They need to just do it and go the other direction. We should actually, we have a break and a guest, and we'll get to that.
We got George McPhee coming up after the break, but we're going to have another conversation about
Vegas
Vancouver.
is just checking first in the National Hockey League.
Oh, is that good?
Yeah, seems okay.
Wow, good for them.
We also got Pierre Dorian giving DJ Smith a vote of confidence.
Pierre Dorian tells us about Pierre Dorian.
In the weirdest way it's honestly one of the most strange clips I've ever heard in my life.
Justin Bourne's looking forward to hearing it.
So is Sammy.
So we got Jimmy Rutherford going the opposite way with Bruce Boudreau. Oh, we got a ton to still get into. Let's take a break right now. We'll bring in George McPhee to help us tee up his Vegas Golden Knights. And then we'll pick up this conversation after the break. Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Real Kyper and Bourne.
From the City News 680 Traffic Center, I'm Carling Donahue, and this report is brought to you by Bel Air Direct. Right now on the West 401, south of Pearson in the Collectors, the left lane is blocked off with a collision. You're going to find MTO on scene and delays from the 427 Collectors. Then it's slow going from Hurontario Express Collectors to approaching Mississauga Road. Also watch for debris in the right lane, southbound 404 at Major Mackenzie. Tire debris and metal debris, MTO crews are aware. Here's a simple idea. If you're a good driver, you deserve a better price on your car insurance. Insurance. It's that simple. Bel Air Direct. Insurance simplified.
Kyper and Bourne on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
President of Hockey Operations for Vegas Golden Knights joins us now. George, first of all, thanks for joining us. Hope things are well for you.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Nick. Yeah, no complaints.
Good. George, it just seems from that first season where you ended up going to the Stanley Cup final, you guys have been on a mission to probably make bigger and bolder moves than we've seen combined from maybe 6-8 teams, and just rifling off a few names like Robin Leonard, Pietrangelo, Eichel, Stone, and now you guys start the season at 11-2. Is the fruits of your labor finally paying off here for you?
Well, it's amazing. Our first 4 years, we played in 11 playoff rounds. Pretty remarkable for an expansion team. And our objective from day one was to put the best team we could on the ice, and that was going to require some bold moves at times. And but that's what we're going to do to try to win. And there are different ways you can approach it. You can take the 4 or 5 year plan and try to draft that number 1D, that number 1 goalie, the 2 elite centers, and so on. We tried a different approach, and I thought it was really good for the Vegas market and really good for the NHL so far. So last year it was a disappointment. We really got hammered with injuries. I think we're second in the league with 513 man games lost. It was just a really difficult season. This year, so far, we're fairly healthy, and you better be getting points when you're healthy, because there are going to be lots of times during the season you're not, and you're going to face some adversity, and it's going to be hard to get points. So we're trying to get them while we can.
One of those people you need healthy and has been healthy for you is Jack Eichel. Obviously, a lot has hinged on his success. Has he been what you expected as advertised? Has anything been different or surprised you about the way he's come back from that surgery and played for you guys to date?
Well, it was surprising how, and it's very elaborate surgery, but to go through that kind of surgery and come back and be playing in 3 months was remarkable. He probably could have played a little bit earlier, but they set the minimum at 3 months, and so obviously we wanted to make sure he got that amount of time to recover. And I think that what we like about him, obviously he's quite a talent, and he trains really hard. And I think what we're seeing now is a young man who's really becoming a very solid 200-foot player. Uses his strength well, shoots well, moves the puck well, but he's good in the defensive zone. He's good in the offensive zone. But he's very coachable, but there's always more room for growth. And that's, he's often the last player off the ice in practice. But his size and strength is impressive. And again, he wants to be a complete player, and sort of fits what we are trying to accomplish as well.
I'm not asking you to tell us that the store is shut between now and the trade deadline for Vegas, but my goodness, I look at your lineup 1 through 4, and I look at your defense, and the only question is the experience in net. But outside of that, I mean, I don't see many holes in your lineup.
Well, again, Nick, we're healthy, so you hope when you're healthy that you don't have too many deficiencies. But in the words of Lou Lamoriello, if you're not trying to get better everywhere, you're getting complacent. There's always something you can do to try and get better, and that's why these jobs drive you crazy sometimes. So, but. We like our team. We like the way they play as a team. Well-coached group, good bunch of guys. And, you just keep your fingers crossed and you hope for good fortune.
So you guys get the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight, talented hockey club who has fallen short of expectations in the postseason, but obviously been very good in some regular season hockey over the years. I'm not sure if you're able to keep an eye on what's happening up here, but it was ugly for a bit here when they were 4-4-2. What is your perception of this year's Toronto Maple Leafs team, heading into your second matchup with them?
Well, I haven't seen them enough this year, and I was out of town when the Leafs played in Vegas. But it's a good team. They've won 3 in a row, and it's so early. They're a 500 team over. We're 13 games in. It really means nothing. There are lots of teams that have had slow starts, so they're going to have great finishes, and some teams that have had real good starts that may not finish. You just don't know. It's that early. So they've got some elite guys up front that always make them dangerous. They can beat you on the power play, and if you're not careful. So they're like anybody else you play in this league now. Everybody's good.
Yeah.
Anybody can beat you at any time. It's a really good league. It's just a really good league. You don't know from one night to the next if you're going to win or lose, and that's pretty impressive.
Hey, George, I want to ask you about how you've seen the goaltending market evolve throughout your career here, because in a perfect world, who wouldn't want a Vasilevsky or a Marc-Andre Fleury or Carey Price in their prime to win a Stanley Cup? But when you see the likes of Darcy Kemper do it and still be expendable, what does that mean? And now you've gone to a guy like Logan Thompson, and how's his progression been? And is it fair that a guy with that lacks experience now takes on a team that is supposed to be contending for the Stanley Cup? Is that the new norm now in net?
Well, I do think most clubs would like to have a tandem approach. The league is so good; it requires so much of these guys to play 60-something games. There aren't many guys that can do it and stay sharp and be good for you in the playoffs. So, we're trying the tandem approach. Didn't have much of a choice, to be honest with you. We lost our starting goalie on August 15th. But we like these 2 young goaltenders. We had Logan, he's a talented guy. Mike Greer called us about Aiden Hill. Our staff had time for him. And I just think, we like what Boston has done the last few years with a tandem approach. I think it's healthy for your goalies to approach it like that so they can stay fresh and focused. And so that's what we're trying to do. Goalies move around now more than they probably ever have, but that's probably more cap-related than anything. Darcy Kemper wins a cup, but he's on a different team the next year. That's unusual, but cap-related. And, the flat cap we've had for the last few years has really made it difficult for some clubs. You have to move some players you don't want to move, but there's no other choice because the cap is puts you in that position.
And what have you seen out of Logan? Is he exceeded your expectations, or is he right where you thought he'd be?
I don't think we're surprised, Nick. He's a very talented guy. Played really, really well in the American League. Won a lot of games for us when the team was outplayed. In addition to the talent, he competes really hard. He doesn't give up on anything in practice. And I think that, your teammates like that, they're coming in and trying to score every time they come in to force you to be better, to make them better shooters. And you're in there, Logan's in there giving it everything he's got to deny you. And first rebound, second rebound, third rebound in practice, he doesn't give up on any of it. And so I know Sean Burke has been really impressed with that part of his game, and Sean has liked Aiden Hill over the years. So I think if you ask him, he's pretty happy with both of them.
George, I look at your guys' team and how solid you are in the back end. Your D-core obviously has a lot of talented players. I look at the Avalanche who just won a cup. Same thing, wonderful D-core. I feel like that's such an integral part of having success in today's NHL. I just want to get your philosophy on team building. Do you think that's the most important part of building a successful team in today's NHL, and has it always been like that?
Yeah, I think so. It's you don't ever want to get too thin on the blue line because you can really be exposed back there. And I really like the way that our blue line has been constructed. And the good news is we have some young guys in the American League that look like they're going to be real good defensemen as well. And so when you're in this spot where you've got it's well constructed, you can take your time in developing the other guys. You don't have to bring them up too early. They're not on yo-yos, and they just develop at the right pace. And we went through it with White Cloud and Haig, and Derek in England had hit a point in his career where his game was starting to fall off, and it was he was aging out, and we were able to insert White Cloud in there, and he had 130 American League games under his belt. So he filled the hole, and he did a good job. And Nick Hague, 130 games in the American League. And so it's nice when you're in that situation where you don't have to force young guys into your lineup, because they typically, if they're too young, they don't get better very quickly, and they miss out on some development, and they really don't help you win. So, the defense is important to us. We're strong down the middle. We've got a good blue line. We're happy with the goalies. So, again, you put it together and then you cross your fingers and hope it works.
One more for me, George. Just early, what have you seen out of your head coach, Bruce Cassidy, and ultimately, what did you see in the offseason that led you to him?
Well, as you know, Nick, I hired him in Washington many years ago, and I thought he was ready and still believe that he was. It didn't work out, but at that time, I think he believed he was a good coach. I think now he knows he's a good coach, and there's a big difference there. I really like him as a coach and as a person. His technical packages are all common sense. It allows players to use and trust their IQ and their instincts. But as you know, Nick, it's more than that. It's to be a good coach in the NHL, you have to do a lot of things well, and he does, and you have to be a lot of things, and he is. And just thought he was. We just got the sense that Boston might be doing something, and I talked to Kelly about him, and Boston made a move, and we been on the phone with Butch and then had a couple of Zoom calls, and it went really well. And we were pretty aggressive in trying to get him. Didn't know whether we were or not, but we made our best pitch, and it worked out.
Well, congrats on the early success, and we are so looking forward to tonight's game. George, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, should be a real good game. Thanks, Nick. Thanks,
okay.
Justin. Take care of you guys.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
George McPhee, president of hockey operations for Vegas. And boys, I'm excited about tonight.
This is fun.
I am really looking forward to seeing Jack Eichel because he has been somewhat polarizing, no question, out of Buffalo, and all this talk about can you like him, you don't like him, can you win with him in your lineup, goes to Vegas and doesn't get off to a great start, and people are questioning it that much more, and yet he comes in and he's not McDavid or he's not Matthews scoring 60 goals, but somewhere he's close to those guys. He is that talented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a game breaker, and we saw a couple OT winners from him this season already. It was interesting. McPhee seemed to go out of his way to comment on him defensively, so I just kind of was digging through some of what's going on with Eichel this year.
200 foot.
Yeah.
He spoke of him as a guy that can get it done at both ends of the ice, which we've never really thought of Jack as.
And he is bang on. I mean, statistically anyway, when he's on the ice, like there's nothing happening in front of the Vegas Golden Knights net. They're in the right end of the rink. His defensive numbers are the best of his career. So, he's found something there, being on a good team and maybe being a little bit older and mature with a good decor. It's impressive.
I think it's almost like golf in this way, hockey, that a lot of guys sort of look a lot alike out there these days, like the way they've been coached and the way that guys skate and the way that guys shoot. Like
Pro sports, I think.
But he really, to me, is one of those guys that's a distinct difference.
It's that wide track,
that
skating,
smooth, the way
he's on
shoots
rails.
it.
Yeah, he's
I really, really am happy that Buffalo traded him, to be honest. Like, that's a guy that I don't like in the division at all, and he loves to play against the Leafs.
How do you not...
Listen, he brings it to the Leafs. That's
how
what we
would you
do.
not want to watch Matthews versus Eichel like 4 times a year?
because Eichel goes bar down every time he plays the Leafs. That's why.
Pretty simple answer, Nick.
Yeah, it's not that hard to figure out.
I don't want to be entertained. I want the Leafs to win.
That's
correct.
Right. That's
correct,
100% right.
But no, I'm glad that because that was a scary surgery and there's no guarantees coming back from that, and it was a bad scene there. Like, I'm happy that he's back to full strength and looking the way he did before.
He's got 47 shots in 13 games.
Boy.
You know what's interesting though? He did still say, always room to get better. He's a guy that must still be working on his game, and that's admirable too. So, one thing about before the break, we talked about the Leafs and the expectation for them, and we compare them to the good teams. You never feel when there's a great team coming in to play in Toronto that the Leafs are just going to get run over. I don't anyway. I always feel like they can hang with these teams. Not that they're going to win necessarily, but like, you're excited for a good game. I expect a good game tonight.
I agree. I wish one of their first or second string goalies was playing.
Good point. Sometimes they just pretend goalies don't exist and gloss over that.
Is that a fair statement? Kipper gave me a look there. Is that a fair statement?
No, it is for sure. And you just hope that
because remember they had that
Shalgren can hold them in.
Just be fine.
They had that game.
Fine. Be a 900. Don't be worse.
Don't let a bad goal in.
Yeah.
They played against Colorado last year. We were all juiced up for that, and they had a goalie from my beer league game in net last night. Didn't they win like 9-3?
Oh, against Colorado.
Yeah. Was it Jonason or something? Yeah.
Just bulls. Yeah, one of those.
One
guys.
more note on the on Jack Eichel going to Vegas. I don't recall when we heard the trade where Tage Thompson, his name was factored in. Was he just one of those throw-in prospects, or was he?
I think he was a big deal.
Was he a big deal?
I don't know. When I'm like a lot of people, I hear the prospect name. I was like, hey, tell me when he's good. I don't know. Is Peyton Krebs the guy yet? I don't know. He's not.
Well, they got him in the O'Reilly trade, right?
That's where Thompson came from. O'Reilly,
did
not
he come from
Eichel.
O'Reilly?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was Tuck,
Krebs,
and then a first rounder.
Something like that.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
But
give me the O'Reilly.
This is like the weakest spot of our show where we talk about something we don't know about. The chat is like, guys.
Just remind me the O'Reilly trade.
Just let me pull it back up here. Boom, boom, boom. The O'Reilly trade was traded. So Tage Thompson was traded with Patrick Berglund.
Nope.
Who quit hockey?
Yeah, he went to
Buffalo.
the SHL or something, didn't he?
Vladimir Sobotka.
Was he a bigger deal than?
He was a good player.
Good player. He's in St. Louis now. Has been for a bit.
He's a first round pick in the first round pick in the 2019 draft, which turned into Ryan Johnson, who has not played. And then that was the trade for Ryan O'Reilly.
Tage was a late first pick.
He was drafted in the first round, 26th overall in the 2016 NHL.
Great pick. Yeah. They're lucky they hit on that one, boy.
Stud. My favorite player.
As good as Jack is, my eyes have been wide open so far watching Tage Thompson.
You guys and Tage Thompson overselling it.
You're crazy. Have you
6'7",
watched him play?
on rails.
Yes.
I saw him live. Best player in the rink by far.
He went to his best game of the year.
He was dominant.
7. I call him Tage Lemieux.
Tage Lemieux. I love it.
Relax.
I know. I'm a little over the top. I get it. Well deserved. Okay. Where do you guys want to go first? You want to go Ottawa and then work it out west? Or do we hit Vancouver right now?
I feel like let's do Vancouver. It's the juiciest one.
All right. Everyone's doing Vancouver. Let's just talk about it.
Let's see how you stroke this on our lineup today.
Johnny Journalist having a look.
Jim Rutherford throws Bruce Boudreau under the bus.
Again.
Again.
Let's have it, Jimmy.
All right.
So this clip's from Canuck Central with my boy Dan Riccio and
Sat Shaw?
Yeah, and Sat Shaw from from last night. So just wanted to make that sure we played that.
First of all, this is not going to get changed in a real short period of time. I know that we all recognize that, and there's a real challenge here, related to sorting out contracts and different things like that. But at this point, I would have expected better. I didn't like our training camp, and we continued into the early part of the season the same way as our training camp was. And in order for us, there's a lot of things that have to happen, but in order for us to become a better team, we have to play with a stronger system and really be more accountable for some of the things that some of the players are struggling with. So when in the NHL now, the way the game's played and the way the game's called by the referees, it's hard to defend because, you can't get away with those cross checks in front of the net, knocking the guys out of the way. And so it's understandable that teams are going to give up leads. And, it happens all over the league. But the fact that it has happened as many times as it has for the Canucks in this short period of time, it's a major concern and something has to be fixed.
Ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. Just wheels over Bruce.
So we got bad training camp.
Bruce, no.
Bruce. How many times at the training camp? Is
There
that
he
the
goes.
10th time he's mentioned that? The training camp.
I know the training.
So
Unless
that's just saying you're not organized.
Unless Bruce threw out a sleeve of tennis balls and ate a Snickers bar on the bench, I mean, he's kind of overdoing it on the training camp thing. How bad could it have been?
So then Brucey got asked about it this morning at practice. You want to hear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm hearing about it this morning, like a lot of people, and it is what it is, right? Like we just, I try to keep the noise out and keep the noise out of the room as much as possible, and just focus on what we have to do at hand, and that's win a hockey game. So that's our focus tonight.
Because things are usually done behind closed doors when you're talking about structure and systems and things like that.
Well, you know what? This is my 47th year in the business. I've seen a lot of things. So I mean, it's just another thing added to the book that I'll never write.
I'll write it for you, Bruce. I volunteer. A lot of good stuff in there, I think.
I don't know how else he could answer that question.
The last one?
Yeah, about closed doors. And of course he wants to say, we'd all prefer it that way.
Yeah, we don't need to be talking about this. It is so weird that Jim is doing this publicly to the point where you have to believe it's on purpose. Rutherford is doing this on purpose. Is it because he would like to make a change and isn't allowed to by ownership?
That's the only conclusion I can come up with, is that I think, is he trying to smoke him out publicly?
That's what I'm saying. Like, is the Aquilini's like, look, we're not paying Travis Green, Bruce Boudreau, and Rick Tocchet, so just deal with Bruce Boudreau. We're not going to win anyway this season, Jim. Because honestly, it's embarrassing. I don't think it's fair from Rutherford to so publicly talk about his coach in a way. He said structure, accountability, the training camp. If you went through the list of things I would pin on a coach, it's everything he's saying.
Bruce desperately tried to find another job
this offseason.
Yes.
Yeah. Like it's a bad
couldn't,
relationship now.
And it never stood a chance. It never stood a chance. As long as there was a window for him to go back to the last year of his deal, it was either that or sit at home.
And didn't Rutherford say at one point, like he was under the impression that Boudreau didn't know he had another year or something? This may be from a previous conversation about it, but like,
you're starting to act like me now.
All right, fair enough. I may not be remembering that right.
Tage Thompson in the Eichel trade.
But really, like he mentioned that the way that the Canucks were winning when Bruce came in last year is not sustainable over a full season. Like he knew that even when they were successful, the coaching wasn't going to work. Well, you're the guy to decide that. Then go to your GM, unless it's Alvin. Unless Alvin's saying I'm not doing it.
Well, every time Jim is publicly out there on this, like, where does that put the presence of his general manager, Alvin?
You're right. It's not right. Like,
oh, well, you're just a messenger. You're just there to do what exactly?
Well, this reminds me a little bit of the whole Gorton thing in Montreal, right? Where it's like it seems clear that the person above the GM is involved in the decision making to a degree that maybe is, I don't know.
Just let the man go.
Just let him go. The Canucks need to move on.
Let him go.
Start
you
over.
talk.
Just
It's just like,
Here's Bo Horvat.
Bieksa.
oh yeah,
You know what? They wouldn't be any worse.
that's like the Jeff Saturday move for the Colts. Just hire him.
Just pull the guy out of
Yeah.
the ESPN booth. I don't know if that's quite the same. Actually, it probably is quite the same.
I'm really surprised that Jim's consistently out there as the president. They're
I feel like we're talking about Brendan now.
actually, Brendan, the more Jim talks, even Pierre Dorian, like the more you talk about your coaches and your players, like sometimes it just won't help. Just doesn't help.
Well, and you said
And
that about
I
the
think
Leafs.
Brendan's best move was not saying anything at all in that small window of the crisis, the early crisis. He never gave us a chance to go back on him and say, you said this, or we insinuate that
So
you were
true.
leaning towards
He just
here
knows
or
he
not
can't
there.
win if he comes out and speaks.
Exactly.
He only talks 2 times, preseason, postseason.
That's wild. What a joke.
You know, he only talks at the year end when they lose in the first round. He says everything's fine.
Wow.
We're just going to keep
Which
everybody.
means-
And then he talks in the preseason, says we're going to win. We're the best. Those are his 2 times he talks.
All right.
Am I wrong?
No,
Sorry.
no, you're not wrong. You're
No,
not
okay.
wrong. You're not wrong. I want to make sure we hear Pierre Dorian. Are you ready to do that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
On general manager of the Ottawa Senators, Pierre Dorian, on his head coach, DJ Smith.
Very happy with him. I think it's the first, I wouldn't say very happy because we're 4-7, but I'm happy with the job that DJ's done, his staff has done. Obviously at 4-7, it's a bit tougher. I think it's the first time that we've given him a team that can compete for the playoffs. So we're going to, one thing about Pierre Dorian was loyal. Pierre Dorian was very loyal. I think DJ's done a good job. He's shown that he can win. I'm not giving votes of confidence and everything. I think that's foolish. DJ's our coach. He's going to be our coach. I have faith with how this team plays under DJ.
Okay. Okay.
I know you're going to that.
What was that glitch he just had?
Jimmy knows.
Jimmy, no.
Okay, that's what Jimmy from
Jimmy Seinfeld,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, Mike Babcock, the way Mike Babcock coaches is just.
I have 2 questions, and you brought this up to me before the show. Is his name pronounced Dorio?
Pierre Dorio.
Is it Dorio?
I think the only reason
I
he did
don't
this
know.
was to get people to say his name right. Pierre Dorio.
Pierre Dorio. Why?
Derek, can we get it again?
Let's hear it clearly.
Pierre Dorio.
Pierre Dorio. Can we hear it? Derek? Can we hear Pierre Dorio again, please, Derek? That's
Very
okay.
happy with him. I think it's the first, I wouldn't say very happy because we're 4-7, but I'm happy with the job that DJ's done, his staff has done. Obviously at 4-7, it's a bit tougher. I think it's the first time that we've given him a team that can compete for the playoffs. So we're going to, one thing about Pierre Dorian was loyal.
Okay.
Pierre Dorian was very loyal. I think DJ's done a
I
good
think
job.
he just kind of
He's shown that he
faded
can
at the
win.
end on
Pierre
it.
Dorio.
I just can't imagine talking like that. Like that's the most, to me, it's the most ego. Like, Justin Bourne thinks we're having a great show here, boys. Really, Justin Bourne's a big fan of the show. Just a bit, like, imagine I said that. You guys be like, what are you having, a
The
stroke?
only one I remember in my career was Jeremy Roenick used to say, "It's not, this is not JR hockey."
That's different. That's different. Jimmy Roenick.
JR could get away with it.
Yeah,
I've
he's one of the
always
most,
been
he scored 500 goals in the NHL. He's one of the most, like, he's a personality. You're allowed to say that.
Jimmy's getting upset. Was that one of the lines? Or
Yes, it is.
Hey,
It's unbelievable.
that was like interesting.
So, but anyway, that's he says, I'm not going to give our coach a vote of confidence, but I'm not firing him, that's what that is. It's a vote of confidence. So the Senators 4-7. He's surprised. People are surprised.
Who's surprised?
Sens fans.
Yeah. Well.
Oh, I had Sens fans friends that thought that this was a playoff team.
Yeah, I never saw. I thought they could hang in there, and I still think
they've been unlucky.
Yeah, I think they. It's hard to say now because they've
Norris
lost
is
Norris for the year.
Broken. Yeah, they also, went through their schedule so far this season. They haven't been beat by more than 2 goals. They've lost a lot of 1-goal games. Their last 4 losses are 1-goal games. Like, they're in hockey games. They're competitive. It's not like it's a bad team.
I never liked their blue line.
No, well, that's exactly right. They got better players and now they're competitive. But yeah, it's still Zaitsev and Zub I like.
All right,
Zub.
Okay, let's move on because we had a conversation on Ryan Reynolds. The Ottawa Senators.
Ryan Reynolds can refer to himself in the third person and it would be okay. Ryan Reynolds is going to buy the Ottawa Senators.
I think we did reference that it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I
the
think
guy's got $100 million and we're like,
we do believe that Ryan Reynolds has confirmed it's a wad of money on the Fallon show last night, didn't he?
Yeah, he did a little talk.
I can't believe that Fallon show's still on.
Do we have a clip?
We have the whole thing.
Yeah. No, not a big Fallon fan.
Who's for? I don't know. I used to be like a late night show guy, and it's just something different now.
You're in bed by 10:30.
Touche.
As soon as the Leaf game's over, I'm done Leaf stock. I'm snoring. So.
All right, let's listen to Ryan Reynolds.
So there's a rumor going on that you may be interested in buying an NHL professional hockey team, the Ottawa Senators.
The Ottawa Senators? Yes, that is
a Canadian team.
Yeah, that is it's an NHL team, the Ottawa Senators. I am trying to do that. It's a very expensive. So, I need to partner with, really deep pockets. Much bigger. It's called a consortium or a consortium when you form a group together to buy an entity. And it's such a fancy way of saying I need a sugar mommy or a sugar daddy.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But you do need one. Yeah.
And if that
well, there it is. Yeah, the man's broke.
Send him to the poorhouse.
We looked it up. His net worth is 150 mil. So let's say he puts forward 100 of that. I don't know.
Is that buying food and beverage for the building?
So
you have to be so rich to own a sports team. So rich. It's grotesque.
I starting to warm up a little bit to the fact that he is willing to just come in and hang out. He seems like a
ton
fun.
Of pros.
He would be a fun guy to hang out, and you can already tell that he wouldn't be that guy.
No, well, he's
who
very
thinks
busy.
He knows more about the game than anyone else.
Yeah,
That's
he's
a great
an
point.
actual movie star, like one of the 10 most famous
He's an
actors
incredibly
on
famous
Earth.
man. Yes.
So, he would be busy. He would not be there every day being like, are we sure we want to overpay their fifth defenseman? Like, he's
Zub on the right side? Are you sure?
It's not happening. Great ambassador. And also, his reputation is integral to his income and his livelihood. So you would think he wouldn't want to be embarrassed. He wouldn't want to be the team that is paying the salary floor, or is that a laughing stock in some way? It'd be a great thing.
You think he even knows what the salary cap is? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, he's Canadian. Probably knows.
No.
You just get your daily email from Canada.gov what the salary cap is in the NHL.
Well, if you're interested in buying the Senators, you like hockey.
Him and Blake Lively give $1 million to Ottawa's food bank. You
must like
part
hockey.
of the community there. Oh yeah.
Yes.
So he knows what the salary cap is. Kip.
No.
Oh, you guys are nuts.
I'm with Kyper. I don't think you're average fan.
No.
What?
If you went to the Toronto Maple Leafs game tonight and asked every fan in the building independently what the salary cap upper limit is,
no.
How many get it right?
Oh, okay. You're asking for the actual number?
What percentage of fans?
I was saying, does he know that a salary cap exists in the NHL?
Well,
That's what
of
we
course he knows
okay.
there's
Well,
a
that's why I was
salary
getting
cap.
so bent out of shape.
But would he have a clue how it works?
Boys, I got to be honest. I don't know the exact numbers.
It's 82.5.
I was going to say 83. So,
see, your biggest problem is you got to find bigger celebrities to hang out than me and Justin.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's not hard. You could probably do it down the hallway right now. Christine Sinclair was just kicking around here last week. Pretty awesome. Kicking around here. Good joke.
I'm a big fan.
Of Christine Sinclair.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no. That's
Oh,
like,
really?
Yes.
That to me is like
absolute legend.
Soccer royalty.
Canadian legend.
Yeah, she's very
All right.
high.
Also, anytime you go out and say F your opponent, which she did recently about Seattle, big fan. Big fan of that.
Do you have something coming out, or it's out already on the Calgary Flames?
I don't think it may be out now. It's probably out now.
What do you want to say about it?
I'm on the clock
Right
here.
now. We are.
We're in a game show. Do you have something else? Do you actually have something else to get to? I don't know.
No, I'm just going through
All
the
right,
lineup. I want to
Flames.
make sure we get through the lineup.
I did some stat digging on the Calgary Flames. They've
Okay,
recently,
we're out of time. I was just kidding. Go ahead.
That's great. In basketball, ball movement is a big thing in terms of generating offense. How much do you move it around, passes, how you spread the floor, all that sort of thing. The Calgary Flames pass it the least in the NHL. I want to know if you think that's relevant in terms of generating offense. So they move it the least east to west in the offensive zone of any team in the league. They pass it the least off the rush of any team in the league. They're like 27th in the league in total passes. Does that matter to you? Or can you be straight north-south, Daryl Sutter, shoot it, get it back?
I don't know. All I got out of that is that they're playing with the ball, right?
They have the puck.
Are we still talking basketball here?
No, they do have the puck, but because they don't pass it, they don't get any sustained ozone time.
They traded for
passers.
No, the best in history. 83 assists, I think, was Jonathan Huberdeau. You've never had a left winger pass more.
Team
in
chemistry
history. How can this be?
No chemistry. This is my theory. So because they don't pass, they have no ozone time. They're one of the bottom 5 teams in ozone possession time. They get it, they shoot it, they go back the other way. They get it, they shoot it, they don't keep possession. My theory is chemistry. That when you play with guys a lot, you know where they are, you make the little passes, little slips, you maintain it. Oh, he likes to go in there. I just think they're really having trouble finding themselves. And when Daryl Sutter's your coach, he's not telling you, hey, go out and look for cute slips. You know, I want we go out there and make little passes in the ozone.
8 days.
He's like,
wouldn't
shoot
this have
it.
been in the
Idiots.
conversation when Tree Living trades for a guy like this?
No.
Is he?
They're like, we need good players.
Is he a Daryl type of player? If he put together an 83 assist season, on many occasions there were those moves that you just mentioned.
Yes, many.
What would Daryl do when he would see those type of attempts night in, night out? Did that ever cross anyone's mind?
Sure, but Gaudreau probably did that a lot too. I don't know how many assists he had last year, but it probably wasn't much less than 65.
Passing is the best part of hockey.
So they should.
That's a crazy take.
So they shouldn't feel restricted because Daryl's now telling them.
I just
north,
can't figure
south.
out why this team their passing stats are so terrible. And to me, it has to be chemistry or coaching or something.
And the Leafs are, what do you say, second on the list in passing?
Yeah, Leafs are second. It's like the Rangers are first or the Devils are first. It's like Rangers, Leafs, Devils.
Passing is the best. Like a good hard pass, tape to tape that puts a guy in is the most exciting play in hockey. I love a pass.
Okay, we're closing in.
Leafs more stretch passes than any team in the NHL.
I've not been a fan of their stretch pass from day one.
And it is a huge part of their offense. Most completed stretch passes per game. It's like 14 per game.
Ovi last night, boys, was a horse. Did you watch him?
Yeah, I did. Still Ovechkin. You guys know you just wait for me to now go the other way on that. See Zach Hyman lift his stick like he was a 13-year-old girl.
He's going to break.
Or boy. Does not matter. Hyman would lift it at whoever's stick either way.
Way to cover yourself. Way to cover those tracks the last 30 seconds of the show there, JB.
He's going to break the record.
Yeah.
Oh, of course he is. Okay. I'm exhausted.
I am too.
George McPhee, thank you for joining us. Jason.
Oh, come on now.
Come on.
Bukala.
Bukopolis. Thank you very much for joining us.
Zelli.
We are back tomorrow. Hit a ratings and review, a like for us. Always a pleasure. Real Kyper and Bourne.